Thank you, buddy, and welcome all of you who come to join us today. We're delighted that you're here. Actually, this church, if you want to call it that, is a little larger than you think, because we have as many as 800 people on a given week who will see the video that we make of this sermon today, and they depend on us very heavily. And we kind of depend on you folks to have somebody we can talk to. It makes it a lot easier to do the sermon. I don't know if any of you saw the ones I did behind my desk, alone in my office. Some of you did. Yeah, it can be done, but it's a lot better to have people here. You know, get to hug people and shake hands and talk to real live human beings. Glad you made it. We have no idea where this will go. We call it the experimental church. Really, it's more of a Bible study, because after we have the sermon, we will take a short break, say 10 minutes, check the clock, and we'll come back and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind, including the sermon. So don't run off right after church today. I have a sense that an awful lot of us are frightened these days. Nervous, perhaps. It isn't the hair-raising fear that gives us an adrenaline rush. It's not that kind. It's a slow dread that can creep up on us in the night and deny sleep. And if you've been around this world very long, if you've lived very long, you know what that feeling is like. Cliches are no help at all, you know. Oh, don't worry, things are going to get better. Or, oh, you know, we have nothing to fear except fear itself. That sounds good, but frankly, I don't know that it helps you sleep any better. And, of course, the politicians who seem to be trying to scare everyone to death don't help very much either. I did appreciate, frankly, looking back over the years, those who in times of crisis have been courageous, have told us to look up and tell us, you know, we can get through this, which, in fact, God willing, we can. The sense that the situation is beyond the control of any leader out there can't be dispelled by slogans. You just can't get rid of it that way. It's probably inaccurate to say that no one knows what to do. It's probably true to say that they know there is nothing they can do to resolve this problem. That it is bigger than anything government can do. It's bigger than anything any leader can do. It's bigger than anything Congress can handle. It's just a little too big for everyone. And not only is it big, it's uncharted territory, considering where we've been and the things that have happened. We are, if we can believe the news reports we have, entering a new era, frankly, in the world, and it will not surprise me at all to see other nations beginning to put up the barriers, cut the ties, and say, we can't depend on anybody else. We are going to have to go it alone. I think we may be heading for a neo-isolationism in the world, and not altogether dissimilar to what some of us had between the two world wars, when people wanted to do nothing except go home, be quiet, you know, paddle their own canoe, and not have to worry about anybody else. I'm not sure that will ever work again. We have known, those of us who read the Bible, we have known that something bad is coming somewhere, somehow. You can't read the book of Revelation without realizing that. And it's irresistible to try to look ahead, to try to understand, to try to say, well, maybe this is it. Maybe that's it. And so we knew that. But I can honestly say I did not expect things to fall out exactly as they have. I remember pondering way back when how it would be possible for Europe to ever come back together again under a single ruler. And the conclusion I came to at the time, believe it or not, was an economic crisis. It was a colossal failure of the economy in Europe that would cause everyone to throw up their hands and say, "Lo, let's all get together and let's put one man over us and let's follow him all the way to hell if necessary," that would come. I didn't expect this. I don't think the nabobs in Washington did either, if you can tell anything by what they're doing and how they're going about it. Everyone got blindsided, it seems, and it illustrates something that I have long felt about biblical prophecy, and I've actually said. Attempts at the specific interpretation of a prophecy are almost always, I might even say always, going to leave you looking in the wrong direction when the thing comes down around your ears. And it worries me about people who draw these elaborate prophetic scenarios and publish charts, of the book of Revelation, and they try their best to look at 1,260 days and 1,300 and whatever it is days, and all of the different things in prophecy that seem to suggest time that things are going to happen. We make the mistake because we go to prophecy to find answers to what and when. What we need to go there for, to look, is to tell us who and why. These are the questions that prophecy actually does address. Who and why. The who is God and man. The why is really 3 little words. 4 words. There is a way. There is a way to live. There is a way to love. There is a way to think, a way to act. You act that way, and life works. You act the other way, life comes apart, and eventually it comes apart catastrophically. And we have just kind of seen how that sort of thing can work. Whatever aspect of life we talk about, there is a way to do it and a way not to do it. Prophecy, for the most part, because I've made this statement before too, God does not send us a prophet to tell us how well we're doing. I don't see any example of that in the Bible at all. When you see a prophet walking down the road and you know he is a prophet, it's time to batten down the hatches because the news and the word is going to be bad. It's going to be corrective. Actually, I say it's bad. It's not necessarily bad if you will listen, if you will respond. I said all that, but this sermon is really not about prophecy. It's about those 4 little words. There is a way. Now, maybe you can finish a proverb that has those words in it. There's a way that seems right to a man, and in the end, it leads to death. To the person who really believes this little short statement, there is tremendous value, far more than you might think. Because, for one thing, the guy who believes this does not try to outguess God. You know, he just doesn't try to do that type of thing, and he doesn't trust his own opinions. He does not treat his own opinions as fact, as God-given truth, because the failure to distrust your own opinion, to distrust your own conclusions, the failure of that has led to, well, in an extreme situation, it led to Jonestown and the terrible loss of life that was down there. It is really healthy to have self-doubt. There's nothing in the world wrong with it, because there's a way that will seem as right as rain to you, and at the end of that there's darkness and there's death. So that little thing just isn't going to get it for you. Now, most of the book of Proverbs consists of single ideas, one verse at a time, and they come at you bang, 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 and some of them, because of where you find yourself in life, tend to lodge. They stick. They hang in your memory. And if you're really blessed, they'll be there when you need them somewhere down the line, and you will know not to do this stupid thing because of a proverb that you read. That maybe you've done this stupid thing once before, it didn't work, and that sealed that particular idea in your mind. Now, Proverbs 3 is a little different. Here we've got a whole chapter that is thematic. And there is a center of this, a central theme that is developed in Proverbs 3, but the whole chapter revolves around it. It starts off by saying, my son, forget not my law, let your heart keep my commandments, for length of days and long life and peace they will add to you. Now, would it be fair to say that the fear of the loss of these 2 things, long life and peace, is with us these days? You know, of being able to have a good life, peace, live a long time, have reasonable health. The fear of the loss of these are here. Let not mercy and truth forsake you. Tie them around your neck. Write them on the table of your heart. So shall you find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man, which is interesting. God and man. What is it? Mercy and truth. The value of truth, of knowing what is right and not trusting your own opinion of it as either. But then the other aspect of it is mercy. What's mercy? Well, mercy is the quality of being willing to withhold punishment even when it is due. It isn't mercy if the punishment's not due. It's only mercy when they got it coming and you don't give it to them. It's only mercy when You shouldn't feel, you should feel this way about a person, but you decide, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to act that way toward them. Okay. Now, the next two verses are the ones that have become lodged in my memory as a result of a lot of mistakes. I'm 75 now. You can just write that down. When you get my age, if you're not there already, you have made a lot of mistakes, right? It's just the way we live. This one has been grooved in me. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Well, the way I see it is, that's fine. You can have a way that you see it. But if you trust that, if you lean on that, you're stupid. Don't do that. It'll break. It'll pierce your hand. It's going to get you hurt. Don't lean on it. Lean on God and on His Word. Okay. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It'll be health to your navel and marrow to your bones. I love the way that puts that. It's so true, though. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord. I've said on the radio, and I'll say it to you right here, if I didn't have the Bible to talk to you about, I got nothing to say that's really worthwhile. Experience, yeah, it's worth something. But my experience has really only been of value to me when I've been able to compare it to the Bible. I can tell you what doesn't work. Sometimes I can tell you what has worked, but the former is more frequent than the last. Then he says something interesting beyond this. He says, honor the Lord with your substance, with the first fruits of all your increase. So shall your barns be filled with plenty, and your presses shall burst out with new wine. That's a nice thing to be able to depend on, isn't it? But in order for it to happen, you have to honor God first with your substance. Not just words, with substance. I'll come back to this. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of His correction. For whom the Lord loves, He corrects, even as a father the son in whom He delights. Now, I have a word a positive word for you at this point in time. I think it's entirely possible, maybe even likely, that what's going on in our lives, in our country, and all around us right now is the chastening of the Lord, because God knows we have got our eyes and had our lives and everything about ourselves fastened on the wrong goals for these many years past. We've been living in a fool's paradise. We've been living far beyond our means as a people. We've been buying things we couldn't afford. We've been buying things we didn't even have money to start with, and then using the plastic and the credit cards. And then we go get another credit card to pay off this credit card. People do this sort of thing. It's crazy, but don't think people don't get crazy. They do. And so consequently, we have been doing this for a long time. So it may be that what has just happened to the world is one of the best things that could have ever happened to the world. Because if we had continued on the way we were going, who knows how many millions and millions upon millions of us would have died as a result. One positive thing that's coming out of it is that the oil-producing nations are finding themselves without any money. Venezuela, OPEC, Russia, they are hurting right now because of the price of oil, which I think was below, was it below $30 a barrel? No, it was below $40 a barrel. I think it was 38. Okay, it's really getting down there now, and as a result of it, they're having problems. You know, if they are the kind of fools that they look like they are, they may have thought that $150 barrel per gallon price of oil was going to go on. And like a fool, they may have sat down with their spreadsheets and says, oh, look what we're going to have 10 years down the road, and extended themselves in ways that they shouldn't have done. Human nature being what it is, I would almost bet you that something like that has happened. Now, the price of oil has fallen out the bottom, and it shows no sign of recovery. Why? Because we don't have the money to buy gas. So we're not buying much gas. We're not traveling as much as we did before. We're being much more careful in the husbanding of our funds, our resources, and what we're doing. Smart thing for us to do. Everybody is doing what they really ought to do for the most part, cutting back. Few people are doing rather extreme things, but that's another thing. Now, do you suppose that we are, right now, in one of those times of correction by God? It's certainly within the realm of possibility, isn't it? And that it's something I think that we really have got to give some attention to in any case, that God does correct us, and that correction comes in a lot of strange ways. Happy is the man that finds wisdom and the man that gets understanding, for the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof is better than fine gold. Now, which would you rather have? Wisdom or a big balance in your IRA or your 401k? Which would you prefer? I think up until now, a lot of people would have preferred the money. And I don't know. There have been, by the way, a lot of billionaires recently who've been wiped out because of a lack of common sense. I mean, these people. I mean, have you noticed the fact that you're listening to television talking about things, and they talk about something only costing $150 million? How much? How did we get to there? Well, because of all these $300 billion, $800 billion, $700 billion, $3 trillion that keep being thrown around, and then somebody tosses out $150 million and says, oh, we can afford that. People out there who have been billionaires have actually been wiped out because of a lack of common sense. And these aren't stupid people. They're people who ought to have known better than some of the things they were doing. Why'd they do it? They did not have wisdom. They did not know enough not to trust their own understanding. They did not know enough to realize that there's a way that looks right, but the end of it is going to be disaster. I had better stop and think and examine this thing. To say, oh, well, I can get 10% on this mortgage-backed security over here, and my bank or my money market's only paying me 3%. Well, I imagine right now that 3% looked a whole lot better than the 10% turned out to be to those people when they look back over that. There have been at least 2 suicides, I think, over this crisis that has taken place here. And the irony is, I have a feeling, if the truth were known, that even after their losses, these people who killed themselves, had more left than you and I have or probably will have in our lifetime. And because they expanded their lifestyle into all that, because they relied so much on that, and now it is all swept away. My 100-foot yacht, my corporate jet, my fleet of foreign cars, all this stuff is gone. What do I have left? Well, chances are they had children. Chances are some of these guys are not spring chickens, may have had grandchildren. Chances are they had people that cared about them and that they cared about. They had more, I think, than they thought. They just couldn't stand the shame of their failure and perhaps the shame of their stupidity as they expressed in that. Jesus said to his disciples, you'll find it in Luke 12, verse 22, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes. What a simple statement. And if it's more than food and clothes, well, surely it's going to be worth more than your Mercedes to stay alive, isn't it? But that's not the way some people look at it. She's more precious than rubies, and all the things you can desire are not to be compared to her. Length of days is in her right hand. In her left hand, riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. And I'll tell you what, peace of mind, peace of heart is something a lot of people right now would give a lot for if they could have it. She's a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her. Happy is everyone that retains her. The Lord, by wisdom, founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. By his knowledge, the depths are broken up, and the clouds put down dew. My son, don't let this get away from you. Don't let these things get away from your eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. So shall they be life to your soul, grace to your neck. And listen to this. Then you shall walk in the way safely. Remember, there is a way. Then you will walk in the way safely. Your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. What's that worth? To have that kind of peace of mind. Be not afraid of sudden fear, nor of the desolation of the wicked when it comes. Is this where we are? Right here? Right now? Are we now observing the desolation of the wicked? And he said, don't be afraid of that. For the Lord shall be your confidence. He shall keep your foot from being taken. Who? God will do it for you. When you can't do it for yourself, you better have somebody like that. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it's in the power of your hand to do it. Don't say, don't at all, go away, I'll give it to you tomorrow, when you have it by you right now. What's this talking about? It's saying essentially that what you need to learn to do is to do good to the people around you. That this is a part of the pathway to peace. There is a way. And part of that way is not being selfish. And if you have it and somebody needs it, your challenge is to help them. Not stupidly, not foolishly. And you have to consider, who it is that you're trying to help in these situations. But nevertheless, this is something we are expected to do. Don't devise evil against your neighbor, seeing he dwells safely by you. Don't argue with a man without a cause when he has done you no harm. These are just simple mercy and truth things that we ought to do. Don't envy the oppressor. Don't choose any of their ways. Now, that has a ring to it in the current circumstances, doesn't it? Don't envy the way of the oppressor. Don't walk that way. For the froward is a perverse, actually, is an abomination to the Lord. God's secret is with the righteous. The curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesses the habitation of the just. Well, here we are. God has looked down upon us. We've tried to be faithful to him in our way, and he has given us a place to live. He's given us clothes to wear and food to eat and people that we not like and love and enjoy being with. We got family. We got a spouse that we can hug. We got all kinds of things that God has given to us. Don't be envious. The blessing of God is on the habitation of the just. Surely he scorns the scorner and gives grace to the lowly. The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of fools. Oh, man, do we see this on television all the time? We see fool after fool after fool after fool going down in flames in total shame for the things that he has done and for the foolishness. I mean, these images of Bernie Madoff, going back and forth, the cameras and people pushing at him and tugging at him, and the realization that this man has stolen billions of dollars, not millions, billions. It's just kind of hard to get your mind around. His shame is complete. And yet, he doesn't show a lot of shame, but I think he feels it somewhere along there. Now, in the midst of this marvelous chapter, there was a statement I said I'd come back to. It's this one, verse 9. Honor the Lord with your substance, with the first fruits of all your increase. So shall your barns be filled with plenty, and your presses shall burst out with new wine. Everything's going to be working fine on your farm. Now, there's something important to know about this, and I don't know if people understand it. It is not magic that this happens. It does not require God to reach over and punch the bless button, or if you haven't done well, punch the smite button. The actions of the law, the actions that we do, actually carry their own blessings and their own curses right along with them. If you tell a lie, and even if nobody ever knows you lied, you know you did. And you are changed forever by the fact that you did. It's something that just comes along with it. God doesn't have to do anything to you. You lose something when you lie, and it's something you may never be able to get back. This is what happens when you obey God. Now, this thing about honoring the Lord with your substance isn't magic either. The remainder of the chapter that we were reading speaks to that issue constantly, all the way through and down through this, that it has to do with the way you live your life and the way other people live their lives and the fruit of that way of living that comes home to haunt people from time to time. The very first psalm also speaks to this, and I love the way it goes. It's familiar to everyone. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel or the advice of the ungodly. You don't follow that way. Nor stands in the way, there's a way again, of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and in His law he does meditate day and night. Now, I talk about this somewhat in the book Law and Covenant, that people, I think, oftentimes don't understand about the law. The law is given to us in terms that are symbolic, that are metaphors, that are illustrative examples, and we're expected to take some time to sit and think through the law of God so that we understand how it would apply in our life. For example, there's a scripture that says, if you see your neighbor's ox or his ass has gotten loose from where his place is, you are not allowed to ignore it. You actually have to take that animal, you have to take it home with you, and if you can't find the guy, you don't know who he is even, you're supposed to feed the animal and take care of it until he shows up and then give it back to him. Well, none of my neighbors have oxen. None of them have asses at all. Dogs and cats, maybe. Well, yeah. Well, we were out walking one evening, and a lovely little bird dog, she was about a year old, a pointer, joined us on our walk. And she was having a ball. You know, she would take and doing what dogs do. She'd make her rounds and smell things and scout out ahead of us, come back by us and so forth. Obviously, she was walking with us. Followed us all the way home. A neighbor's dog. Well, it's not an ox or an ass, so I don't have to do anything about this, right? Wrong. It's something valuable. It turned out it was a valuable dog, a purebred pointer. And we took her in, put her in the backyard, gave her water because it was hot then, and kind of began to call around to try to find out who the owner was. This type of thing is the thing that if you spend the time in the law, it begins to develop within you the kind of a character that thinks outside of yourself, that thinks about things beyond what's your comfort or your convenience or what your likes or what your dislikes, and you put yourself in your neighbor's position and say, what do I want somebody to do if my dog were missing? One of the things I really appreciate where we live is when our dog was missing, many in the neighborhood turned out looking for her along with us. Terrific people, because they care about one another. And I think also because they are educated in Christian principles. The things they don't understand, but they are doing pretty good on the things that they do. Okay. His delight is in the law of the Lord. In His law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth its fruit in its season. His leaf shall not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper. Now, forgive me if I belabor the obvious here. Take another look at it. The Scripture does not say he will be prosperous. Is that different? Yes, it is. It says what he does shall prosper. If you don't do anything, it ain't going nowhere. Right? It's not going to go anywhere. As I've sometimes said, it's very, very hard to steer a car while it's sitting still. It's got to be moving. It makes it a lot easier to turn the wheel. One of the very great examples of this is a man named Jacob. You know the story probably of the conflict between Jacob and Esau when they were boys, of the way in which Jacob stole Esau's birthright. Actually, he didn't really steal it, he bought it, but yet he got the blessing of his father as well, and Esau was ready to kill him. His mother, sensible woman that she was, even though she was a rather duplicitous woman, sent him away to go find a wife somewhere else and to work somewhere else. Maybe his brother's anger would pass. So Jacob went on his way. Well, it turned out he came to a place that came to be called Bethel. It was called Luz at that time. And he spent the night. He made himself a bed and used a stone for a pillow, which seems unreasonable to me. I hope he put a garment on top of it. But anyway, he dreamed. And he dreamed he saw a ladder set up upon the earth. The top of it reached up to heaven. And the angels of God were descending and ascending and descending on it. And then the Lord stood above it and said, spoke down, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, the God of Isaac. The land whereon you lie, I will give it to you and your seed. And your seed will be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west, the east, the north, the south, and in you and in your seed shall all families of the earth be blessed. You know, not just people right here, all the people. Because of what you do and who you are and how you've carried forward, the whole world will be blessed. Behold, I am with you. I will keep you in all the places where you go. I will bring you again to this land, for I will not leave you till I have done what I have spoken to you of. Now, boy, if you get that kind of a promise from God, it ought to really impress a man. He woke up, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know it. He was afraid. And he said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other than the house of God and the gate of heaven. Probably not, but nevertheless, that's the way he felt at that time. He said, got up in the morning, took the stone that he put for his pillow, set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat, raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone that I have set for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will surely give the 10th to you. Promise that he made. Now, much has been made, you know, some of the arguments rage back and forth about tithing, and it's hard to not understand why some people get a little disturbed by it because of the abuse that some churches put to the tithe and the way they handle this type of thing. But we're not talking about churches right now. We're talking about a man and God. That's all. Okay? They say that, well, this wasn't the law of God. This was a vow of Jacob. Fair enough. But it was more than that. It was a covenant he made with God. It was a deal, as it were. You gave me this promise. Okay. Of all that you give me, I will give the 10th to you. How much did he owe God if God didn't give him anything? Nothing. Nothing at all. Only of what he gave him, a 10th was to go back. And for the life of me, I don't know why anyone would want to enter a covenant with God and leave any part of his life out of it. How about you? You got any kids? You go into covenant with God. Would you want to leave your kids out of it? Would you want to leave your business out of it? Would you want to leave your family out of it? Your wife, your mother, your father, anybody else that's in you want to leave them out? There's a cartoon I saw once, I'll never forget it. A man is down the river with a preacher getting ready to be baptized. The preacher holds up his hand and has this other guy, and he says, of everything that goes under the water belongs to God. The next panel, the man is under the water. The preacher's got him down here, but his hand with his wallet is sticking up out of the water. What a symbol. What part of your life do you want to not include in your covenant with God? And if you're going to include it, how would you actually do it? Well, the tithe was to Jacob a statement that God was his partner. Just simple. God's my partner. He's entitled to this, and I will give him the 10th. But you should know this about tithing. The tithe is not magic. And the result of the tithe is not magic. Tithing does not insure money from the sky. It doesn't mean every penny stock that you buy is going to turn out to be another Xerox and go to the skies. It doesn't mean that at all. You're not going to gain a thing in the world by giving a 10th to God and being stupid. That should be obvious to people, but for some reason it gets away from people. What it tends to do, that is the tithe, it tends to put you in the right place, at the right time, and with the right mindset to act, to do, and to be. It has a way of doing that. You know, tithing changes your approach to nearly everything. I don't think many people really realize this. What it does, it makes God your partner. That is important in the first place. 1 John wrote and said, that which we have heard and seen, we declare unto you, that you may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with His Son, Jesus Christ. And these things we write to you, that your joy may be full. This then is the message that we have heard from Him and declare to you. God is light, and in Him is no darkness at all. If we say we have fellowship with Him, underline that word because we're going to talk about it briefly. If we say we have fellowship with Him and we walk in darkness, we lie and we do not do the truth. If we walk in the light as He is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of His Son, Jesus Christ, cleanses us from all sin. The Greek word for fellowship is koinonia, and it means partnership. Pure and simple. If you were a Greek living in Athens and you're putting together a contract with another guy to go into partnership with him, you would describe that as koinonia, which the Bible translates, almost of them do, fellowship, going away, because it sounds more religious. But basically, what it means is partnership. What tithing does, perhaps the first thing that it does, is it confesses, impresses upon the mind, everything I have is not mine. It isn't. It's not yours, it's yours in God. It actually tends to diminish greed. The tither is less apt to be greedy than a man who is not. It creates, tithing does, a sense of stewardship. That's a word that's used a lot in churches talking about giving and so forth. But what it really means is that we really don't own anything. God owns everything. And we are His stewards, His servants, having received for this portion of what God has, that which comes under my control. And therefore, if I am a steward, I must be responsible and accountable to the owner of all the stuff that I have. Tithing begins to impress upon a person's mind, as I said, he doesn't necessarily own everything that he has. God grants him the use of it, lets him work for it, lets him enjoy the fruits of his labor, but the partnership requires the acknowledgement of God. I've said it many times, I'll say it one more time. Tithing is an act of worship, an act of obeisance to God. It is not something that God, anybody's going to come and make you do. There was no Internal Revenue Service in God's economy. A man had to make the decision to give the tithe to God, or if he didn't really think God gave him anything, he got it all on his own, he was free to do that. But of course, if he decided he got it all on his own, he is left entirely on his own, and his whole approach to this, his whole approach to life, is wrong. Tithing does not insure against loss, nor does it exempt you from the prudent man rule. What's the prudent man rule? What would a prudent person do in this situation? Tithing does not exempt you from that. You're still expected to use wisdom. You're still expected to pay attention. You still have to use your head in the things you do. And frankly, I am reasonably sure that there is not a tither anywhere who has not suffered loss in the past 6 months. I think you could, if there's any way to do a survey on it, I'm sure that that's precisely what we'd find. All of us have suffered loss. But at least he had something to lose. And also, I think if we could do a survey, we would find that the tithers did not lose at all. Why? Because they're stewards of what belongs to somebody else. They have to be responsible for it. I know at least one fellow who had intended to be much more aggressive and much more aggressively invested than he was. He's a tither. But God had kept him so busy on more important things, he never had the time to pursue the investments. And so, when everything came crashing, he was in cash instead of in stocks and bonds and things that suddenly diminished in value. Accident? Maybe. I doubt it. I think that partnership with God makes a huge difference. His losses were minimal, frankly, compared to those who have invested aggressively with, say, Bernie Madoff. So what should we do in these troubled times to recover from them? Sleep better at night. 2 Chronicles 7, verse 14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and heal their land. That's a promise. That's just really ironclad. And you know, it's odd. After September 11th, 2001, church attendance went up dramatically for months. I haven't heard a word about church attendance changing since last autumn when all this crisis began. Have I missed it? If I have, please tell me. But I haven't heard anything about it at all. It's strange. I don't know that there is any chance at all that what is written here in 2 Chronicles will ever happen nationally with us. But it does need to happen to you and me. We ourselves need to respond to this. In fact, if we walk with God, hand in hand with Him, if we walk according to His law, when it really gets rough, we can walk between the hailstones and not get hit. Psalm 91. He that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He's my refuge, my fortress, my God. I'll trust Him. Surely He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and the noisome pestilence. The snare of the fowler. Do you know what this is talking about? It's talking about where a man actually sets the little snares with the little things on them so that a bird coming along, and it is the image of a bird, pecking along on what's on the ground, steps into this little noose and catches him by the foot, and he's gone, he's cooked, he's stew or a fried bird or whatever it is the guy's going to do with him. He will protect you from the snare of the fowler. And boy, have a lot of people been caught in a snare recently. He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings shall you trust. His truth shall be a shield and a buckler. You will not be afraid of the terror by night. You will not be afraid of the arrow by day, nor for the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor for the destruction that wastes at noonday. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get hurt somewhere along the line. There's something you should know about the way this is worded. It's kind of odd in a way. Thou shalt not is the formulation of a command, not a prediction. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not be afraid of the error of the terror that walks by night. He's actually telling us that we have to make a choice not to be afraid. How can you do that? You know, when you're actually terrified. We can't control our fear, can we? Well, maybe we have more control over that than we think we have. One thing we can do, we can act like people who are not afraid. Now, is that a pretense? Not really. We can do what the courageous people do. We can act with courage. Courage is that which overcomes fear. It is not the absence of fear. If there's nothing to be afraid of, if you're not afraid, you cannot be courageous. You can only be courageous in the face of fear. So when he says don't be afraid, what he's telling you is don't live like you're afraid. Don't walk like you're afraid. Don't talk like you're afraid. Stand up and face the problems. Walk in there. Face it. 1,000 shall fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand. It will not come near you. Only with your eyes you shall behold and see the reward of the wicked. Oh, you're going to get to see it on television. What these people get, which apparently they richly had coming to them. Because you have made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation, there shall no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. You do understand, don't you? This is only true if you really do make the Lord your refuge and your habitation. You have to make the choice. And you have to stand up there and say, I will not be afraid. And by that you mean, I'm not going to do what scared, afraid people do. I'm going to do what courageous people do. And he goes on to say, a familiar scripture, He shall give His angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the adder, the young lion and the dragon shall you trample under your feet. You know, when Satan quoted this, He'll bear you up that you don't dash your foot against a stone, he didn't mention the last part of this where he said, the dragon you will walk under your feet. Jesus did, however, suffer and die, did He not? Yep, sure did. And we all also must face the end of life. And maybe, before we get to the end, we will actually have a chance to walk between the hailstones as they fall and not get hit. Because that's one of the things that's going to be involved in it for us. He goes on in verse 14 to say, Because he has set his love upon me. Here's the concept. If he has set his love upon me, I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. He shall call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. You know, we are not at all to the extremes of that verse that says 1,000 shall fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand. It won't come near you. We're not there. We are way short of that. But we are like men caught in a hailstorm. Can we have the consciousness of walking between the hailstorm? So, you know, you can talk about somebody being able to dodge raindrops. Well, what about it? Can we, with God's hand in ours, can we actually walk in this storm and not be hurt by it? Can we navigate these days with confidence is what I'm asking. Because it's dangerous times ahead. It really is. Or will fear get the best of us and cause us to make bad decisions we shouldn't make? I recalled an expression this morning that only occurs 2 places in the Bible. One of them is 1 Timothy 6, beginning in verse 7. He said, "We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can come out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content." Food and clothes. Didn't even mention shelter, you know. Didn't mention a house. I guess if we've got to live in our car or maybe live in a tent, that's what we got to do. But food and raiment, we're supposed to be satisfied with that. And I think this is interesting. He said, "But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all evil, which while some have coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." Well, have we seen it? Do you watch television at all? Do you watch the news? Do you read the news? We've seen it all around us. Every day, it seems like. "But you, O man of God," he said, "flee these things. Follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness. Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life." Get with it, my friend. You've been called to this. Make a good profession before many witnesses. The other place we find this phrase is Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 17. "For the Lord your God is a God of gods, a Lord of lords, a great God, mighty and terrible, who regards not person and does not take reward. He executes the judgment of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the stranger in giving him food and raiment. Love you, therefore, the stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt." I expect you to, the movie that came out, pay it forward, pay it on. What has been given to you, give to others, and pay it forward. In the days ahead, a lot of people, brothers, sisters, family, strangers, are going to be in trouble. I don't think we need to worry overmuch about people who lose a house they shouldn't have tried to buy in the first place because they couldn't make the payment on it. Those people, we don't have to worry about buying them another house. Food and raiment is another matter, though. Shelter will be available. It may end up being a tent for some people. It's the duty of Christian people to help one another and the stranger, like we did in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And frankly, you may think whatever you want to think about other Christian churches. I admire what the Christian churches did in the aftermath of Katrina when the government failed and the Christians came through and took care of those people. This is what we are supposed to do in caring for the stranger. People here in Tyler actually took them into their homes, not to mention the churches and different shelters here in this town. Maybe a cure for fear is action. Remember the psalm? "Whatsoever he does shall prosper." Can't do much with what he doesn't do, but what he does will prosper. Exactly what we should do is variable, because it depends on who you are, it depends on where you are, it depends on your means, it depends on your opportunity. But you'll know when the opportunity to do comes by. When the opportunity arises, you will know what to do. Just take God's hand and walk between the hailstones.
This evening, this afternoon, let's rise and take our hymnals. Let's turn to number 57, Abide with Me.